Hurt people hurt people. Like you don't know what's going on in someone's life. I've had people, taking it back to my epilepsy, I've had people come up to me years later and apologize to me for things that they said, just comments and stuff like that. And it's not an excuse to say mean things, but they were just going through a hard time and they used their words to lash out at people.
Wow, guys, can you believe it? We're already over 20 episodes into Nick Speaks, but here's the truth. I couldn't have done it alone. The amazing team at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions has been with me every step of the way, from those early strategy sessions all the way to editing, promotion, and even helping me land guests. They've made it so all I have to do is show up, record, and focus on delivering the message. Kyle at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions tailors everything to your unique needs and is so creative to give you what you're looking for. But one thing's for sure, he gives 110% to help you create an incredible podcast. So if you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, now's the time. Hit the link in the show notes, set up a strategy session with Kyle, and get ready to take your podcast to the next level. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of the Nick Speaks podcast. I am your host, Nick Comstock, and my voice is a little elevated today because I have a guest, but he's been here before, and this is a show that I really don't have to rehearse for. But this is the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. And I am your crippled host, Nicolas Comstock. And I said that today because my best friend's Daniel is here, and he laughs and thinks that I'm hilarious with everything that I say. Daniel, this is your third time on Nick Speaks. Nobody's ever done a third appearance yet.
Has anyone ever done a second appearance besides me?
You. That is
Yeah, so I'm the only one that's even done a second appearance.
yes, but there is gonna be a second appearance. I have to reach out to them, but there is going to be a second appearance, hopefully by somebody that's been on the show before.
Cool. So I just keep beating them by getting another appearance. So I'm already ahead.
But
So
we've already talked that you are. Sorry, I'm drinking some water.
you're good.
We've already talked that you are um my backup. Like, if I don't have a guest, like, you're the last person I'm gonna call and be like,
I'm the last person. I'm the last person that Nick would call. That means he called a bunch of people before me, and they all said no. And then he was like, "Oh shoot, I gotta call Daniel."
yeah, that's pretty much true. Well, I've had great guests on for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I, I need to keep the guest going because my ratings, it's all about ratings in this business. My ratings go better when a guest is up. So,
Well, that's good.
um,
Makes me feel good.
don't worry, I don't think it'll go any higher just because you're here.
Fair.
Anyway, but you guys, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. You always get to know a little bit more about me, and of course, you get to know probably a lot more about Daniel. And you're like, I don't really care about Daniel. I'm here for Nick. I understand that you're here.
Fair.
I understand that you're here for Nicolicious and all that I offer you guys. I really understand that you're not here for Daniel. I mean, his wife is barely there for him. So, hey, Ashley,
That's false. My wife is a great person, and she's there for me.
I said that,
Mhm.
but no, I agree. But she is just there just because.
Oh, she's you're putting a dig on me.
Yes.
This is gonna go south really fast. You know, we had two very long episodes together, and the last one I was just talking to you about it before we got on is the fact that whenever we talk about a subject, we take about 45 minutes to get there and finally land. So
I
hopefully this podcast will get there faster.
I know. Hopefully, we will because we're taping this on Friday afternoon, and it'll
Yeah,
be up sometime Tuesday afternoon.
sweet.
But we're taping this on Friday afternoon, and I'm gonna try to hurry it up because I have I want lunch, and I'm very hungry. And when I get hungry, I get very hangry, and it just
You should have ate before we came on, man. Now you're gonna have to wait another 2 hours. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, well, probably true. Um, So today we're just going to hang out and have a good time, but I do want to talk to you more about because you were diagnosed with epilepsy in high school,
Yeah.
freshman year of high school. And when you had we talked a little bit about it in your first episode back in, I think you were my third episode, Daniel. Wow.
Cool. It's
Um,
awesome.
So in your first episode, we talked about your epilepsy diagnosis and how you had the seizure at your first seizure at school camp, which is a school wide thing where you guys went to school camp every year. I say you guys because I didn't get to go.
Yeah.
They didn't like the crippled people. Uh,
Well, which I end up getting as a disabled person, I end up getting a taste of that my senior year out of all the years because of my epilepsy. They did not let me go to school camp that year because of that senior year. So, just
oh,
a side note.
I didn't know that. I didn't.
Yeah.
Wait,
So,
were
so
you in our same class? Were you didn't
yeah.
graduate with us, did you?
No, well, okay. So we were in the same
Right.
class. We were in
Yeah.
the same class. I did not. I just because I didn't graduate at all. Um, but I ended up dropping out of school. But that year, I was in school that year. And here's what we talk about. We get off track. But
That's good.
but yeah. When it comes to that senior year. I was like ready to go to school camp and I was really excited about it. It was one of my favorite things, but my epilepsy was so bad at that time that they were like, it's probably not smart for you to come to school camp just so you don't get hurt with all the activities and everything. And
Mm.
I was looking forward to it because all the activities and I like begged them, like, please, can I come, James Woosley? Please, can I come? And they were like, no, well, here's the thing. I had like one of my father figures was the pastor. And so you know what I did? What Daniel did was I called up the pastor. I texted him because I felt so bad the entire week. The entire week I was like, "Hey, I can't believe I'm not at school camp. They're there having fun." So Thursday comes around and they have their last 2 days, Thursday and Friday. Thursday comes around and I was like, "You know what? Screw this." So I texted the pastor and I said, I want to go to school camp. It's 3.5 hours away. If my mom drives me there, can I go for the day tomorrow? Can I just go for the day and she can drive me there and pick me up? And he's like, sure. Let me tell James. James Woosley is the principal at the time, and so he gets a hold of James Woosley and he says, hey, Daniel's allowed to come for tomorrow. And James is like, okay. So my mom, my poor mom, I cannot believe this to this day that she did this for me. I mean I can because I'm her kid, but at the
What's
same
wrong
time,
with you though? That's the thing.
oh yeah, she drove three. Let me see. Let me see how far away it is because I might be okay. North Webster, Indiana. It might not be as far as I'm thinking, but still, it's pretty okay. Okay, it's an hour and 52 minutes still. So she drove almost 2 hours to drop me off in the morning. She drives all the way back home. So that's already 4 hours. She drives all the way back home after she drops me off. And then at night, she drives 2 hours again at night to get me and drives 2 hours back to go home.
But
So yeah, anyway.
that's dedication, and
Oh
that
yeah.
shows that your mom was like, "No, my son needs to be there. My son needs to be in the atmosphere and all. But see, that's the thing though. Then you and I should have hung out that week because I was never able to go to school camp.
Yeah,
And
we definitely should have.
we now that I look back on it, would have been nice to have you because I actually had to go to junior high for that week.
Well, I was just gonna ask, did well, no, because no, so no one stayed back. I was just gonna ask, were there any high schoolers that stayed back? But no, because it was a school event. So you would go to school and the school took you.
Yeah, and nobody had to pay to go. It was a free. You didn't have
Right,
to
the school
pay.
paid for it.
It was a free. Yeah, it was a
Right.
free camp, so nobody had to pay to go. So everybody, unless your parents were like crazy stupid, were like, no, you're going to school camp. It's going to be fun. And it was a lot of fun for you guys. And the thing is it really bothered me always up until that point because, everybody talked about how it unified the school. Everybody, got behind each other for the year and you were going to have a great year. And then, of course, 50 kids got expelled a month later. But no, I'm just kidding. That's just a
No,
joke.
but you're it's not completely wrong.
It's not completely. Yeah, 50 kids got expelled a month later. Um, but it was always difficult for me because I've talked to you about fitting in and being in with friends and having all that stuff, and it was just so hard because I was like, they're all getting connected, spending a week together, and here am I back having to go back to seventh grade science class because nobody's in the ninth grade or 10th grade or
So you were actually sitting in like the seventh grade science class?
yeah,
That's crazy.
I had to go back to junior high for a week because they had nothing for me to do. And then it was just the school did not, and the church for that matter, because the church ran the school,
Right.
did not do anything to make sure that I was involved, and neither did my family. I mean, they just said, "Well, Nick can't go, so
Hmm.
that is what it is," and that's why I preach to special needs parents all the time. Even though your kids are given a low bar from the very beginning and they're told they can't do all this stuff, don't let that scare you as a parent, and don't let that allow your kid to miss out on life
Right.
because I missed out on so much life because of that. But anyway, back to you. So you were diagnosed. Were you ever actually diagnosed with epilepsy?
Yeah, pretty fast actually. Once the seizures continued happening, um I cannot think of her name, my doctor at the time. She was Asian, a really sweet lady. But uh kept seeing me and she was like, "Yeah, these are being way too frequent. You're gonna have to go on medicine." Once I had to go on medicine, then she was like, "We have to present you with an actual diagnosis at this point." Um, so I I don't know if there was any term in front of epilepsy. I just remember she was just like, "We are diagnosing you with epilepsy," and then they put me on the seizure medication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I remember you struggling with that a lot. And one of the things that I grew up with is people were like, Nick, we don't know how to talk to you because you're in a wheelchair. We don't know how to treat you. And now looking back, I kind of see their perspective because of your epilepsy and because of the fact that your seizures were so violent and they could happen anytime. I remember being afraid to sit next to you in a chapel service
Oh
because
yeah, absolutely.
literally, I mean, I just, and I've never shared this part with you before. I remember trying to do something to get out of like a chapel service or something that you were a part of because I was just afraid to see you have a seizure. I mean, it scared me to death because you were shaking so violently. You were, I don't know if you ever remembered yourself making noise like you were trying to catch your breath and you couldn't catch it. So
Yeah,
you're,
that's a sorry not to stop you, but when it
yeah,
comes to especially grand mal seizures, your body uh pretty much just goes your body takes over, and or your brain is going haywire is what it's doing, and so your body is shaking. Your body can, or your brain can start to tell your mouth to make noises. There's a lot of, especially when it comes to grand mal seizures, and we talked about it last time. There's different types of seizures and whatnot, and we don't have to get all into all that again. But yeah, that was a thing, and so I could see from your point of view, Nick, how that could be a scary thing. And it wasn't just you. There's a lot of people that, I was a fragile person, so I can relate with you on that. I know obviously two totally different disabilities, but I can relate with you in the fact that, yeah, there was a lot of people that just didn't know how to act at certain times because, oh, when, is this guy going to fall out? Like, because the person that's sitting next to me, especially if it was at a church service, which happened a lot, if I fell out, they had to be the ones to carry me out or take care of me because they were the ones directly beside me. So I could totally understand that. Yeah, it's a scary situation for sure.
and if I'm in a I'm in a wheelchair and I'm sitting next to you like on an aisle, I could just see someone pushing me over like some like just object to try to get to you because
Yeah.
you're shaking. I don't mean to make light of it, but you're shaking so bad. And it's just like I could see both of us getting injured at the same time,
Oh, absolutely.
and so it was so scary. Was there ever, because you had consistent seizures from when to when?
Oh man. I mean, see, I was not good at taking my medicine. And to be honest, they always asked me if I took my medicine, and I never did. And I just want to come on real quick and say, if you have medicine, take it. I know it's going to make you feel weird. And that was the issue. It made me feel weird. It messed with me. And I hated it as a kid. And so I did not take my medicine. And that's why I had them so much. But freshman year, consistently, probably up until for, for a solid, man, for a solid like 6 years. Off and on. There were times where I did take my medicine and I would go, 100 days to 200 days without one, and those were really good stints because I used to have them all the time. I sometimes I had a couple a day, but as a kid, and we talked about this a little bit before, bullying and all that stuff, stress was a big factor in my epilepsy and having a seizure, and so that would cause it. So if I wasn't taking my medicine, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. I wasn't eating a lot. I wasn't, and I was really stressed. Then that would start one, and I knew that. And sometimes I could feel them coming on, and it was just neglect of me to not take my medicine. And as a kid, you just don't care sometimes. And so again, I would say if you have medication when it comes to that, like it is it's really it's wrong for you not to take your medication. Help yourself. Take your medication. Do the responsible thing because it was irresponsible of me. So I would definitely encourage you to do so. Anyway.
Was there ever a time in that process where you were like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Like, am I going to be able to get married? Is this going to kill me?
Oh, I
Want to kill
absolutely.
yourself? I mean, let's be real.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. And I think we actually talked about this before we got on the air. With me is almost began an everyday thought. Like, especially when I started having them a lot, it was like, when's this gonna stop? And again, then I would get on the thing like, "Oh, take your medicine," and so I would take medicine for a while, and there were some times where I would, I would be under too much stress, or I wouldn't get enough sleep, or something would happen, and it could overpower the medicine because that is possible still. Medicine is the end all be all, and it would still happen. So 100%. But there were definitely times where I'm like, when is this gonna end? I don't want to live anymore, and there's definitely thoughts. And also the other thing we talked about this too is, am I gonna wake up the next time I have one? Because people don't realize how serious epilepsy and seizures are. So what I mentioned to Nick earlier was this: when we see someone having a seizure out in the open, so let's say, and this would be unfortunate, but let's say a child, you're at the store and a child falls out and starts convulsing, or an adult, anybody. If someone, falls out and starts convulsing and they have no history of epilepsy, and you don't know them from Adam, they don't have any history of epilepsy, and they're just falling. So your first thought is, this person has never had a seizure in their life, and so it's very serious. You call the ambulance right away. You're like, oh, they could die from this because epilepsy and seizures are very serious. But what happens is when someone gets diagnosed with epilepsy, that sense of urgency kind of leaves, because your initial sense of urgency is like, let's get them to the hospital, let's get work on them, let's make sure they're gonna live, that they're okay. But when they get diagnosed and they have seizures all the time, it's just like, oh yeah, this guy, he has them all the time, just let him wake up from it.
Becomes normal.
It becomes normal. And I understand, especially in my case, I had them a lot. So it did, and it could become an annoyance for people too, because like, oh man, he's a disruption. He's always having seizures. And that was the case where I was having them a lot. But I will say this, when it comes to epilepsy and seizures, always treat a seizure like anything could happen at any time. If someone is having a seizure for too long, get an ambulance there, call someone, because you never know. Seizures, especially seizures when you're sleeping, are horrible for your body. I mean, all seizures are bad, but I'm saying, they could lead to death, and they have led to death before. I know a guy specifically that passed from seizures, and I'm not going to mention his name or his family, but and the guy
Right. It was at
specifically.
that funeral. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just a horrible what two guys specifically, and both of these guys. But the first guy that I'm talking about was a long time ago, and I think I might have been in junior high, or
Yeah.
but it was just a horrible situation, and it could lead to anything. So you always treat so to get to the answer of your question, yes, I did feel like that because I didn't know, whether I was gonna wake up. I just didn't know what was gonna happen. And I just didn't know, am I ever gonna be able to live a normal life? Are my kids gonna have this? That was a big thing. Are my kids gonna have this? Are my kids gonna be like me? Are they gonna have a bad memory like me? Are they gonna stutter? Because I stutter sometimes because of it, like me. Um, there's just a lot of things. So yeah, absolutely. You just have all the thoughts, and you still have them to this day. Like, I don't have them near as much anymore because the doctor did say at that time it's possible that I would grow out of them, and I haven't 100% grown out of them. Like, they followed me, but they're definitely controlled now. But if my wife has told me, I think you had a seizure in your sleep, so that's very scary because that's the time that it can attack the most, and I could
So
die.
what's that like? Because you're asleep. So do you know? Like,
No, no, you don't. I will say this: after you wake up, or me specifically, every person's seizures are different. There's different types of seizures. Everybody's different. But when I wake up from a seizure, I feel like I just ran a marathon. Like, I just ran I just ran 2 miles, sprinted them, and I just feel like I want to, or if you feel like you are so exhausted, you really can't do anything else other than sleep. That's what you feel like. All your breath, all your energy is taken out of you. Your head is groggy, and so if I wake up like that from a sleep and I'm like, what in the world? Why do I feel like this? And my wife said, I think you just have a seizure, last night in your sleep. It makes more sense because I'm like, oh crap. And it takes a while, especially as an adult now. I'm not a say it
Do you
again.
do you thrash around? Like, do you? I mean, you
Yeah,
don't
I
know, but does your wife know? Does she?
yeah, well that's how she would know is if I were convulsing. And again, not everybody's seizures are the same, so not everybody convulses, but the way she would know as far as like sleep is if I was like shaky in my sleep or convulsing or seizing.
That's so scary. That is something that a lot of people with my condition, CMV and cerebral palsy, are diagnosed with are seizures. And what I've learned is there's so many different type of seizures. And every doctor that has ever seen me, they're like, "Have you ever had a seizure?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "I'm so surprised because all my patients that have cerebral palsy or anything similar to you, Nick, have seizures. So I'm surprised that you have not." And I'm just so grateful to God that I've
Yeah.
never had a seizure because I've seen you go through them. I've seen other people go through them, and they are not they are not something to mess with. And I'm so glad that you said that. Now, I want to back up because you said um, once people, realize that you have them or someone in their life has them, it kind of becomes routine and they're just like, let them come out of it. But time is of the essence. So, how long should somebody wait before they call 911 or before they call an ambulance and say, this guy's having a seizure, he needs to get there, or this guy or girl, whatever, is having a seizure?
I mean, it's a really good question. For everybody's situation is different. I would say if someone is like solidly convulsing for somewhere between 2 to 5 minutes, that's a long time for your body to be in like a complete shock. Sorry,
Yeah.
just our screen's just messed up, so I apologize for your screen recording. Um, but that's a long time for that to happen. So I Now, if it's someone that you know has never had one before, you need to call an ambulance right away. But if it's someone that is consistently like they do have epilepsy, there is a history, you can give it time for them to come out. If they have a pattern of like, hey, let's wait a couple minutes, he's usually out of this by now. But if we're between the 2 to 5 minutes of because being like seizing and convulsing consistently and constantly
Mhm.
is completely different than someone just almost just more passed out and maybe coming out of it. Those are two completely different things because if they're seizing, it's actively happening. The seizure is attacking their brain. And so if it's consistently happening, you want to stop that. And there are medicines out there now. There's a pill that my wife has that if I am seizing, like especially out in public, it's in her purse. So she's never felt the need to do it because she's never felt like it's past that time. But if it goes for a long time, she's got a pill that she's supposed to put in my mouth and it goes under my tongue and it'll shock my body out of one.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Medicine really has come far.
Yep.
Um, have you ever had to use that?
I have not. No. Thank God.
So you don't know what that would actually feel like. Okay,
No.
you have three kids, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So have they ever seen you have a seizure? Have you talked to your kids about if you ever see dad go down, this is what you do?
Yeah, so they've never and you know what, we need to have that conversation. My kids are 8, soon to be 6 in 4 days, and then one just turned 2. So they're still young, but that should be a conversation soon for sure. I will say this, they have not seen me have a seizure. But I will say a couple years ago, I had one in church that I hadn't had a while. I hadn't had in a while, and now my kids were in our junior church, our children's church at the time. So they weren't in the main service where they saw it happen to me and they saw me having to be carried out. But we left to go home that day. And so they saw me in the wheelchair. And my oldest goes, "Daddy, what's wrong? Are you okay?" And my wife's just like, "Daddy's just not feeling good." Because at that time she's maybe 4 or 5.
Right.
So it just
Yeah. Yeah.
right, yeah, to try to explain that to her at that time. So, but that's definitely a conversation I need to have, and everybody should have with your kids, especially if you're in a position like mine where you have a disability. Um, of any sort, you should explain it to your kids. In my case, it's a little different because I haven't really had them near as much as I used to. Like I said, and if I have, it's been more in my sleep, so my kids aren't seeing it. But it's definitely something that you want to talk to your kids about and be open about, for sure.
Yeah. Because the last thing you want them to be prepared because
Right,
you need to call 911 for you, unfortunately,
right.
if that ever happens, God forbid. I have a question because now if I didn't have a question, this wouldn't be an interview. But I have a question of because there are dogs that are trained to know when a seizure is about to happen. Did your mom specifically ever think about getting you a dog that would
Yeah,
notice
my
when you're about
wife.
to have a seizure?
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I absolutely. My mom had thought about it, and my dad wasn't too keen on dogs back then, so she never did. But my wife specifically was very much into that, and she was like, we need to get you a guard dog," and it just never happened. We do have a golden retriever, and I have thought about sending her to school to get that done, especially if I go to like the airport or something like that, to have her around because golden retrievers are would be perfect dogs for that.
Mm,
Um, any retriever, any German Shepherd or Shepherd mix or anything like that. So I definitely would recommend someone with epilepsy getting a service dog or someone to help like that. I will say my dog is a very like if something was happening to me, just not being service trained, she would try to help regardless. But that's definitely something that we should do and that we've talked about a lot.
yeah, yeah, because I'm surprised that your mom, I mean, you said your dad wasn't into dogs.
Yeah, I mean that situation, but I think it's more I think it was more the hierarchy
Yeah, the
that's all.
hierarchy of
Yeah.
listening. No, baby, I'm your husband. That stupid shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. A whole nother episode for another day.
Yeah.
There's something else I want to ask you. So did your mom ever think about applying for you for disability or any type of Medicaid or any services?
We did, man. It is oh goodness gracious. It is hard because and you know this, they're specific about jobs, about you working and making so much money with getting the
Yeah.
disability.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because
so
I couldn't get it until after I was 18 because my parents made too much money.
and And that could have been a thing too. I really don't know how much. I know my dad. We ended up finding out later. I know my dad was had a very good job at the time, so I don't know if he made a lot. Um, that could have been a thing, but I think I did apply for disability, and then I don't know if I ever went through with it. But the reason for me was because I wanted to work and I was very keen on living a normal life. Like the what we would consider a normal life. I know that's not the best verbiage to use, but what we
Right.
could
No, I understand.
yeah, but what we would consider a quote unquote normal life where just get a job and cuz I was so and my mom will tell you this. I was so keen on just acting like there wasn't any problem in my life, wanting to do everything that everybody else was doing. And so I did. I got a job.
That because you didn't want to be singled out. You didn't want to be because you were already singled out already. Every time you would fall out and have a seizure, everybody would turn and go like, I mean, so
And and I don't want to veer on this subject too much, but the fact that you say that, a lot of people were always like, "Oh, he's doing that for attention," blah blah blah. And we
yeah,
don't have to get into that.
yeah.
But I will tell you
Go ahead.
this: as a kid, waking up and having hundreds of people or dozens of people standing over you, looking at you, staring at you was horrible.
Oh yeah.
You turn into a spectacle. Everybody makes it about you, and not a good way. Everybody the entire day is like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Hey, we're praying for you." It's like they feel bad for you, so now you turn into this charity case, and it's
Yeah.
like,
It's one of the drawbacks of being a disability and being a Christian. Don't get mad at me. I'm telling true.
no, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they make you. I don't know. They just make you feel like a baby. It's like, oh, sweetheart. I'm like, dude. I'm like, you see me walking? Like, we're good. Leave me alone. I'm just like you. Um,
Well, I remember the first seizure.
oh, and
And
we talked about it in the first episode.
yeah, but we have to talk about it again. And this is why I laugh because I remember the
Emily.
first seizure that you had. We had a huge freshman biology class,
Yep.
and it was Emily Moffat's first week of teaching. Emily, we love you. You're the best. And she was like, why did this have to happen in my class? That's the first thing she said because it happened with like the first or second week. And, she was, Emily is dainty and like so feminine. She's like, guys, just pray. And then so we ran over and got the nurse, and somebody did.
What?
I didn't.
Well, and you have to remember, like Emily. I'm trying to actually see if I can uh if I can see how old she was at the time. No, I'm not gonna be able to. But she was probably in her 20s. She was very young, so
Very
she's
young,
new. She's new to this. And
but she was new.
was it a class of all guys?
I think so. Yes. Yes, it was. Because for some reason they wanted to do all guys in one class and all girls, and it was really stupid.
Yeah, I was stupid.
So I remember like we all just stood there, like we were reading the Bible at the beginning of the class, and then all of a sudden you faint. And I was in the back of the class, and so I was like, what's going on? And um all I remember is saying somebody running at the nurse. So somebody sprinted over to the other school, and they got the nurse. You talk about having 30 people stand over you. No, she made everybody go out in the hallway.
Did she?
Yeah. Pat Harrell was like, I need everybody to go out in the hallway. And it was
I
just
don't. Well,
you,
obviously, I don't
her.
remember that.
It was just you, her, and I think, no, Emily was in the hallway with us. So it was just you and her. And Emily was like, just pray. Just everybody just pray. And we're all just standing there. We're not praying. We're talking to each other. Like we're not praying. Okay.
Well, you're a bunch of 14-year-old freshmen. You're all guys too.
Yeah, we had all the troubled guys. We had, you know, Matt Jordan, we had Derek Duso, we had, you know, Carlos, he was a really big dude. Uh
Oh yeah, Charlie.
yeah, Charlie, Terrante Walker. Yeah, I'm dropping names, y'all. I
Well, so I can't remember if you told me this or if Javi told me this, but someone in our class told me that Ryan Davis tried to put a wallet in my mouth.
he
I was
did.
like,
Yep,
was it that time?
he did. I think he tried it a couple times.
He just wanted to shove his wallet in my mouth.
But on that particular guy, Ryan Davis was a cool guy. He was a cool guy because he came to a Christian school from a public school.
Oh yeah.
So like the total rebellion factor was in him, where we were just like, do whatever the cult says. He was like, screw this.
Well, it was it wasn't like rebellion in the sense of I want to do wrong. It was more he grew up again a normal life. We grew up in this very specific religious, a very cult mentality, and him going to a Christian school, coming from a public school. It's like, what the heck is this? Like, why is everybody so weird here? Because our school wasn't like your average Christian school, where like a normal Christian school, we were very, very conservative. This is the best way. The way the Duggars lived was our Christian school. That's the best way to explain to people.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was all about one man's teaching and
Yeah,
oh, Jesus. It,
yeah.
um,
We don't need to get on that, but
Lord, yes, that's your podcast.
But
Anyway,
but yes, to bring it back, I will say with people hovering over you, you're waking up, yeah, you did, you felt singled out, you felt horrible.
so would you rather have 30 people hanging over you that are your peers or a nurse that's 50 years old, like Pat Harrell?
um so I'll tell you this. A nurse, because number one, she can help medically take care of me, and if she can't take care of me, she can call a ambulance to take care
Well,
of
yeah,
me.
that's true.
But
Nasty pneumonia or whatever it was that she put under you.
oh dude, so she would use the
Tell
smelling
everybody
salt.
about that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I remember there was one time she was like, I held this under your nose for 3 minutes and you didn't wake up. And I'm like, actually, what do you want me to do about it? I was seizing. Like, but she would take the little ammonia, what people called smelling salt, and you crack them, and she would put it under my nose to help wake me up. Um,
What's it smell like?
it's not it doesn't smell like it's a feeling.
Uh,
Like
is it like tingly or
it's tingly, all right. It is like and it really only worked when I was like coming out of a seizure. Because if I'm like full blown in a seizure, yeah, ammonia is not gonna help me come out of, you know what I mean? Brain, stop! Smelling salt, you know what I mean? But it was like if I was foggy and like the seizure was getting over to help like fully wake me up, she'd put it on my nose. But it's just a strong sensation that comes up your nose, and I mean it's power. Like if you were just obviously when you're out, it doesn't feel as powerful until you start waking up. But if you were just to crack one open right now, and so you'd be like, "Oh my God," because it is. It's supposed to like
yeah.
bring yourself awake. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, she definitely. But yes, yes, I would rather not 30 of my classmates standing over me because I mean it is. It's just embarrassing, and it just I don't
Is
know. It
there
be
a certain place that it's more embarrassing to have a seizure than other places, or is it just
and,
embarrassing altogether?
and it's embarrassing altogether, but in a big, big crowd, because when everybody sees you at the end, everybody treats you like a charity case, and they treat you like, oh, there's the kid,
Or if you're in the middle of church, they stop the whole service and they pray for you, and it's like, okay,
Did
well,
that? Did they do that?
I don't know if they ever did that at chapel, but
Did he
they,
do it at church?
I don't, I don't recall. Maybe they just let it go, or maybe they just said, you know,
Yeah.
it's one of
But I mean, if it's happened or not, there's people that will come up to you afterwards and be like, "I'm praying for you. I hope you get help." It's just like, all right, lady, thanks,
you get help for your stupid remarks.
dude. The stuff. I mean, you know this, and we've talked about this before on your old YouTube shows, but the things people say to you is just like, like, why would you say that?
Did anybody ever come up to you and say that your epilepsy, your seizures is your cross?
I don't, not in the way that Jack Scott said it to you, but I will say that there have been people that have said, you have a really big burden to bear. It's like, excuse my language. No shit, Sherlock. Like, I mean,
Well, and you're supposed to help me bear it. Galatians 6:1. So what's your problem?
yeah. Oh, get him. Um, oh, it's so true, man. Yeah, there. And here's the thing. I am a Christian, like Nick says. I have a Christian podcast, and which Nick was on recently. So check that
Yeah,
out.
go check it out. Back to the fundamentals. I'll put it in the show notes.
Sweet. Yeah, we had a great time. Back to the fundamentals. I had a conversation with Nick. Really, really good conversation. But
Yes.
so I am 100% hardcore Christian and everything like that. But I'm also a realist and just I'm like treat people the way you would want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Don't say stupid stuff. And I think people overthink sometimes, like, oh, I need to say this. Oh, just treat them like a normal person. If you see someone have a seizure, just you don't have to tell them that you're praying for them. Just pray for them.
Yeah.
Like because everybody says, "Oh, I'm praying for you." Everybody says it on Facebook. Ain't not one. I'm not saying not one of those people, but very rarely are those people actually doing it. Like if you're gonna do it, just do
Yeah,
it.
for just to say it, just to make themselves feel good, and they think that it'll make you feel good. But in reality, when I hear people say that all the time, unless I really know that the person really does pray for me, it's like, okay, have you, or did you just pray for me 2 minutes before you sent that message?
They're like, I'm gonna pray, dear Jesus,
Yeah, yeah.
in the moment.
When Daniel and I say we're hardcore Christians, we're brothers of the Apostle Peter, so we curse um all the time.
Don't get me started on that. I mean, cussing is they're just words. If we were to say the words that are cuss words, and we were to be in, excuse me, we were to be in Italy, someone just went down my throat the wrong way.
Oh,
Excuse me. But we were to be in another country, they wouldn't know what those are. They're just words.
oh, you
Excuse
sound
me.
like such an old man, like Godfather,
Let me
right?
t- let me now Nick, you gotta do that. No, I'm just kidding. Let me take a drink real quick. Hold on.
Sure.
But yeah, man. And not to again to bring it all back. There are so much things, and you just want to treat everybody that you would want to be the way you would want to be treated. Um,
We say that all the time, and the way I look at that, Daniel, is some people act so rude and so mean. I actually feel that that's the way they want to be treated. So then I'm like, okay, this is the way you want to be treated. You
well, it's a good point, and think about it. What do we hear all our lives? And this is a true statement. Hurt people.
hurt people. Yep.
There it is. Hurt people. Hurt people. Um, you don't know what's going on in someone's life, and so sometimes so I do. I'm a forgiving person, and I get that from my mom, and I do give people the benefit of the doubt a long time. A lot of the times, I've had people, taking it back to my epilepsy. I've had people come up to me years later and apologize to me for things that they said, stuff just comments and stuff like that. I've had people that do that have come back to me and said that because in that time they were, and it's not an excuse to say mean things, but they were just going through a hard time and they used their words to lash out at people.
Thing. Kids are kids, bro. Kids are mean.
Oh, yep.
We were mean. I was mean. You were mean. I mean, there are times, and my parents don't know this. I mean, they will if they ever listen to this, but they don't. So there were times that you and I would be on the phone, and we were in a singing group together, and we would just cuss each other out. Like, remember? I mean, like you would cuss me out, and then I'd be like, "Listen, you bitch."
Just imagine our like 15-year-old selves saying that again. Dude, see, if we had a screen that we could just like rewind our lives and just watch ourselves again, I feel like we would be in a room dying laughing at each other, watching us go back and forth as little kids. You mother like just
Yeah, yeah, totally.
oh.
I mean, it's just because kids and don't parents don't ever say, no, you can't use kids will be kids. Yes, we can because kids parents, you have to remember that you were a kid once.
Yep.
You were mean once. No matter how well you train your kids, there's going to be a time where they're mean to somebody else. Does it make it right? No, but
Yeah.
it's just the process of life.
And then what you do is you make parenting, and me as a parent, just because I'm experiencing this now, I've got an 8-year-old and a soon to be 6-year old, and again, and a 2-year old, and you understand that those times are going to happen where they are going to be mean, and they can have those quote unquote bully moments. But then you as a parent, what were you thinking?
No, it's just, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. When
you
you're
as
a parent, you teach them, yeah.
well, you as a parent, you have to make that continue. You're making me laugh. You have to make that a continuation to where you're telling your kids, "Hey, this is not okay. We treat." you,
Sorry.
there's like a heartfelt moment. Parents, teacher. Ah!
Well, he'll have to edit out. Kyle will have to edit out some of the extra laughter because I honestly don't know.
Who cares?
Well, actually, no. Here, here's the reason why I'm laughing, and it has nothing to do with the episode. But okay, so did you ever watch the George Lopez show?
Oh yes, da loca.
The sitcom. So I remember, okay, he was at this high school carnival, with his kids or something, at a birthday party, something for his kids or something, and there was a dunk a dunk tank, right?
Okay,
And so one of his daughter's boyfriends, one of his daughter's boyfriends,
this is Carmen. I think
Carmen,
there was only one. Yeah,
yeah,
Carmen.
one of his daughter's boyfriends was at the dunk tank, and he said something about, or no, it was one of like a school bully, and he was like, "You probably have the hardest colon in high school." And like, oh my gosh. Anyway, he got in trouble. Like the principal called him, "Mr. Lopez, did you tell one of our students that?"
You gotta. So, moral of the story: don't let your kids go tell. Don't tell your kids that they got a hard colon or something like that. Oh man, but no, no you know what? I'll say this: when it comes to that, yes, your kids are gonna struggle, but have the continuation of teaching your kids, and understand that they are gonna struggle with it, but teach your kids like, hey, this is not okay. And I think that was instilled by my mom in me, that even though the times I could be mean to other people,
Right.
that I could turn around and do better. And you could tell the kids that were the more bullies, that they struggled at home, and that's just
One of the statements I hated growing up was, "Take the high road." I'm like, no.
screw that. Come here, I want to punch you in the face.
Like, no. I remember, oh my goodness. I remember one time there was a teacher that she was severely overweight, and yet she had the audacity to make fun of me and my weight.
Is
So
this in high school?
yes, but I was in a special ed class, so keep in mind it wasn't actually.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Picked
So
up
I
what you're
was,
putting down.
I was severely overweight. Well, not really, probably just like a grown high school boy eating everything that I could get my hands on.
Sure,
Um,
me too.
and but yeah, you were a toothpick. Don't even be like me too. I hate you.
Not no more, man. I can put on weights very fast now.
Um, but anyway, I remember she said something or did something to one or let one of the kids have a snack, but she didn't want me to have fruit snacks or something. And I was like, if he can have fruit snacks, why can't I have crackers or something like that? And so I really stood up to her, and she got in my face and was like, "It's none of your business." Yeah, and it was a whole ordeal. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I just thought I would throw that in there.
I love the randomness.
But Daniel, don't you think that it would be good to almost for because it seems like a lot of kids have seizures these days. Like they're diagnosed with epilepsy. Wouldn't it be good to like have a class like have a regular health class like explain so that normal kids who didn't have a disability knew what their classmates were going through? Maybe they could have a course on it, like epilepsy, or here's what cerebral palsy is. And because I remember I did my first science fair on cerebral palsy, and
Hmm.
I actually dissected a frog. Was it a frog brain or a shark? No,
I,
a
was it was it shark brain or was it frog?
it was a sheep
Oh,
brain. Um, but don't you think it would be beneficial for our classes, instead of doing, anatomy classes and how the bird and the bee gets together? Like, if they have, kids that have, life altering disabilities, maybe
yeah.
have their parents come in and teach a course on, yes, my kid has these issues, but and this is what their body does, this is what their body tells them, this is how their body functions. So it doesn't make the kid who doesn't have a disability uncomfortable to talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And in the rise in this day and age, and the rise in the U.S. of autism, that's a huge one. We've seen autistic kids come through our school. My oldest daughter has mild autism, and just disability in general. Yeah, I think that would be a great idea to and if you couldn't have a full course, at least in your science class or whatever they would call it, whatever type of science class that you had, um, that you would explain, hey, there are disabilities that are more common in kids, and these are some of the disabilities. And while you're on a subject, you can hit a disability. Hey, this week we're going to talk about this one. Then the next week you get to the next one. And that way, at least people understand, okay, this is what this kid goes through every day. And then in the midst of talking about that subject, you could have the kid come up and talk about that subject and how,
Parent, if the
or the
kid
kid's parent. But
nonverbal or whatever. Yeah.
I think if someone had told me to explain at that time how the epilepsy made me feel and how it affected my life at that time, I think I might have been vocal about it and finally said, "Oh man, someone's actually asking me that question," and actually explained to them how it made me feel, because I think at that time I may have just wanted someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Um, and I couldn't. And as a kid, you don't necessarily know how. And I know it sounds weird, but you just don't know how to talk about something like that. So if someone asks you, I think you'd be like, "Oh yeah, wow, I do feel this way about it." And so yeah, to your point, I think it would be a great thing to educate in somehow, some way, on especially disabilities that again, like a big one like autism, where kids that maybe are more verbal than others with autism might just seem like quirks to you, but really in reality you may not know, but they're autistic. And so just the way that their mind works and their brain works, I think of a friend of ours, Tommy Seamer, you know,
Yeah.
and people like that could, probably got bullied coming up at school, and they were just different than us. They just had a different
A different way. Their brain was
yeah.
wired
And
differently.
and
Yeah.
we just got to be, and I'm not one of these guys that is like one of the uber sensitive people in the world. I'm a more conservative guy, but one thing I will tell you is like we do have to be sensitive to those topics, and sensitive especially to kids. Like these are kids, and if you treat your kid to if you teach your kid to not be sensitive to those things, they're going to be the ones that are going to be the bullies, that aren't going to treat these kids right. And I remember, I know a kid, I don't know if he was ever diagnosed, but I could tell he had some sort of autism or Asperger's. And I just told my daughter this story the other day, so it's interesting that we're talking about it. He was my brother's age, and he was in sixth grade, and he brought a firearm with him to school one day, and he walked home and he was getting bullied all the time just because of his the way he was, his personality, and really it was because he was mildly autistic. And I don't know, he like skipped school. He got dropped off at school or he left home. I can't remember what exactly it was, but he left home and they found him. He either left school or left home. Regardless, they found him not too far from his house in a field, and he had shot himself, and he died from his wounds. And this is a sixth grader, so we're talking about maybe 11 years old, and that has you know took his took his own life because of that. An editor, uh, if you have to silence these words, if you have to filter out these words due to monetization, that's fine. But anyway, all that to say is you need to teach your kids. You need to train your kids how to treat people because this stuff is real, no matter what you have in your life. And I know we're joking, we're talking about Nick. Yeah, all of us have had our moments where we have been mean, but at the same time, like you never know what that kid is going through. The kid that struggles with
Yeah.
this disability, and
Yep.
it's very important. And that kid could have had a great life had our parents been better. I'm not blaming it 100% on the parents because the kids do make their own decision. At the same time, we're where the buck stops. Like the parents, you got to teach your kids, hey, this is how we treat people, and if we can teach that, hopefully we can relate it to our kids. Hey, become their friend. Just because they're different doesn't mean they're bad.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I think having the classes that you and I talked about, in school, explaining what the disability is, explaining what it does to someone's body, I think it would open up uh, that door and the kids wouldn't feel so isolated, you know, and also it would help the parents. It helps if the parents wouldn't isolate their kids and be like,
Yeah.
no, you can't do this. You can't go be with the other kids because you find ways for your special needs kids to get involved with non special needs kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Your kids are, and then when they're in their 20s, like I was, you're like, why does my kid have no friends? Well, because you didn't acclimate them to the community
yeah.
and you didn't get them involved because you believed everything that the doctor, you believed that the rap sheet, you believed the rap sheet that the doctor gave you when your kid was born. They can't do this, they can't, you know they can't talk right, so they're going to feel embarrassed, or uh, they can't go to school like a normal kid. Well, now they're going to school, but because the doctor said that your kid couldn't go to school, now you're having a problem getting your kid acclimated to the school because you never expected your kid to go to school.
Right. And we do need to listen to doctors when it comes to um diagnosis. We got to be aware, but at the same time, I 100% agree with what you're saying, Nick, because there, like, for example, in your situation, I'm not bashing anyone or anything like that, but in your situation, and our school wasn't public, to be fair. So
It's private.
y-
Yeah.
yeah, so they treated you their own way that they wanted to treat you. But I will say, we've talked about this before, where Nick was put in a special needs class. Nick is not what you would consider special needs. He is in a wheelchair with a form of cerebral palsy. Well, that's not special needs. Special needs is something that you would consider more. I mean, the only thing I would say, quote unquote, special needs about is that you need help when it comes to the bathroom and things like that. Um, but other than that, as far as the way you talk, the way you function, your brain and everything, was
Right.
what was that of a completely average kid. And
And the way I needed help with my vision too, so I could have used a teacher's aide, but because
right,
this was private, and they didn't want
right.
to do, individual life service plans, and they didn't want to do all that.
And so you weren't in the class with us. You were occasionally in our classes, but like you didn't go to every class with us. And people
I
like you,
wasn't responsible for a lot of things either, like, doing a lot of the work you guys did. When I got to high school and got older, I would go and have meetings with my teachers and say, look, you know, I I can do this. My mind is very sharp.
yeah,
I want to do this. And so there were a couple teachers that took me up on that. Whether I liked their methods or not. Like some of them would always say, one of them in particular would always say, Nick is very late in turning in his work. Well, first of all, you said turn it in when you can get it back to me.
hmm,
And we would do it when one of my special ed teachers had a free hour. That's when we would do the work that I did in the other
right.
classes. And
Because
so,
they're also taking care of other kids too,
right.
right?
And so And they're like, well, have your brothers do it, have your mom do it. And I'm like, my brothers are doing their own classes. And my mom at the time, she was cleaning banks and cleaning houses. And my dad, my dad was doing 12, 14-hour days at FedEx. And so there was no way he was going to come home and help me do this thing that I never really got a grade for anyway.
Yeah, you were in a yeah. That's a whole other story for another day. But you were in a different situation. But I agree with you. And my point is to fight for your kids, and we need to do a better job at that too. In your situation, I feel like everybody could have done better around you to help you out with that. You as a teacher can't just say, "We'll figure it out." To you, you know what I mean? Well, no, you as a teacher help this kid figure it out. Like and especially so a dad of a child that's mildly autistic. Also, don't give up on your kids just because you got the diagnosis.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to autism specifically, that can you can help develop your child's learning disabilities. You can help with that, and the doctors will tell you, "Oh, they need to be put in an autism program," and they may need that. And we looked at that, but as we saw my daughter progressing and being really good at school, there were just things that we had to work with her on with transitions. She was really bad with transitions, and she would have meltdowns in school, and I would have to go pick her up, and all the kids are looking at her like, "What's wrong with this kid?" But they didn't realize that she had autism, and so there were those times that we had to work with her at home and say, "Hey, this is not okay. This is the way we do it." And it's so important for the parents to be so involved in your kids' lives. I know that sounds weird because a lot of parents are probably like, "Well, how are you not involved in your kids' lives?" But you'd be surprised at how many parents just let their kids come home and come on the couch and just watch TV, and they just come home after work, and the parents do their own thing. And so you gotta be involved with your child, especially your disabled child, and help them because you can really help their disability, and you can help further and help them advance. Even though you don't think you can to some way, shape, or form, whether it's their brain, their mind, or their physical ability, whatever it is, there is something that you can do to help with that.
Yeah, that's a good thing you brought that up because especially, your special needs kids coming home and watching TV. Listen, I watched so much TV when I was growing up that now as an adult, my TV barely comes on.
Hmm.
Like I spent so much time watching TV, and thank God we had good TV growing up because the 90s, I don't care what people say, the 90s and the 80s had the best TV.
No, it's true.
they
But
they
what could you do though, Nick? We
Yeah,
didn't have cell
exactly.
phones at the time. Like you eventually had your own phone,
Yeah,
and or you would be on the phone with guys like me or guys like Nathaniel or Josh, and that's all you did because you were pretty much like, hey, you're stuck in this chair, so all you have is TV and your phone. Your like house phone is what he had.
yeah.
And
And for those who don't remember what a house phone is, and
things on the wall.
I also would play. Well, no, we weren't that bad. We had cordless phones.
Oh, we
Um,
did too, but ours was like hung up on the wall, and you just grabbed it off the wall.
oh, Interesting. And
You could do it with all of them. Just some of them didn't hang. You could. They all had a back, just like your TV has a back. You don't have to hang it on your wall, but they all have a back that you can mount them on the wall. Anyway, go ahead.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, or back then, I would be on the phone with you guys, or I would play court in my room, and I would be the judge, the court officer, the parties, and I would like have. Do you remember the wooden hamburger mallets?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so to me, those looked like a gavel, and I can't tell you how many hamburger mallets I made my mom go through because I would use it as a I would use it as a gavel, and I would
That's
like
awesome.
break the thing. I would break the top off of it because it really did look like a gavel. Now I want to like order me a gavel offline and start playing court again.
But that does hurt my heart because how many times do kids sit in their room alone because their parents aren't, and I'm not harping on any parents, I'm just encouraging parents like,
No, this is the time of year that I do it because we're coming up to graduation season, Daniel. And a lot of times now, if you're in a special needs program, they'll let you stay an extra couple years. I did not. I was like, oh dear God, get me out of here.
but again, in your situation you shouldn't have had to, but it's another story for another day. But
Yeah. So, because, and this is why I say a lot of special needs programs are glorified babysitting services because they don't think that people with disabilities are going to accomplish much of
I
anything.
know, and I hate that.
I mean, now there are some people out there, they may need that. They may need a place to go watch TV and go on field trips
A
and
daycare. Yeah.
yeah, an adult daycare. And thank God for places that are out there like that for those people who actually need it.
Right.
Frustrating because as soon as you say someone with a disability, you know, oh, let's try to get you over here for a day program. And a person like me doesn't really need a day program. We need a job. We want to work. We want to have, money outside of our shoestring budget. And
You want to live like everybody else
yeah,
is living.
yeah.
I don't
And
want to be told that I can't do something. And that was and to go all the way that, hey, we're circling back now. To go all the way back to the reason why I didn't get disability was because I wanted to work a job.
yeah,
I remember going into Taco Bell and I was all excited about it because they told me I was gonna get the job and that I was like I was super excited. Hey, I'm gonna work at a fast food. I'm gonna work at Taco Bell. This is great. And then when they found out that I had epilepsy, because they were worried about me being around the fryers and everything, and the the hot stoves and all that stuff, they were like, oh, what if you fall out? And
hot stove
so
over here like
right.
they do some gourmet cooking over.
But yeah, and so it really made me depressed
Yeah,
because I'm like I can't be normal. So I worked for a guy named John Blank, and he was a great guy. I worked for a guy named John Blank at a sports store, and he gave me a job, and he let me work there, and he was super good guy, super nice to me, and it made me feel like a normal person, made me feel like a normal kid. And,
yeah,
and that's all I wanted. I wanted to be. I don't want to be told, "Hey, you can't go to school camp." To bring it back to the beginning, hey, you can't get a job, you can't do this. I remember Fred Mooney telling me, my senior year, I loved basketball, but I was never like amazing. And him telling me, because I went there and I tried out for the basketball team, and I was gonna make the team that year, and he was like, hey man,
what?
I'm just worried about, yeah, which and I did.
Picture you as a basketball player.
Well, that was the last, and all of my siblings were decent at basketball, and then he comes up to me, he's like, do you want to be the manager? I don't want to be your freaking water boy. Hey, you want to be the water boy because of my epilepsy, and they were worried about my head getting hit, and because head injuries was a thing for my seizures, and so it was a lot of things. But I just didn't feel like a normal kid, and I
Instead, they let you go out to wrestling.
And then, well, you know what though, Brian Hassey, and he asked me, he said, "Are your parents okay with this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "All right." And he made me feel normal. It wasn't, and we talked about this in the first episode. It wasn't the best idea that I went and wrestled, especially
Right.
for my head injuries. But it may, and I'm not saying you should do that, parents. That's not what I'm saying here. So don't get me wrong. But like, it did make me feel like a normal kid, and I was fine. Um, and it's just going back to the things that your kids can be allowed to do within within the right boundaries. I would say that. Um, you know, help get them there.
You special needs parents have to be willing to push the boundaries. You have to be willing to say, you have to be willing to sit down and weigh, is it worth my kid feeling normal for 2 or 3 hours while they do this activity, or is this really going to hurt them? You have to sit down and weigh it and say, is it really going to hurt them, or is this just me being a helicopter parent because
Mm.
I don't want to have to deal with the aftermath
Yeah.
if they do get hurt? You have to be willing to sit down and ask yourself those questions.
And then on the other hand, you don't want to be too careful of a parent where it's like, my kid has, and my kid has to wear a helmet all the time. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to laugh at that. I just know I remember this one parent that, I say that because I'm thinking of this one specific parent that their kid didn't have a disability at all. And you don't know these people, but their kid didn't have a disability at all, but they just wanted their kid to wear one of those safety helmets
Are
just
you
because.
serious?
Yeah, I'm being serious. Just because they were like such a, "Oh, I don't want my kid getting hurt for anything." So a little kid walked around with the helmet. Anyway, it's not, and to each their own. I'm not laughing at parents that do that. That was just one specific parent
Oh
where the
yeah,
kid didn't have a
I am.
disability.
Daniel may not be, but I am. If you let your kid just walk around with a helmet just because you don't want them to get hurt, you need to get a life. Get a life.
Uh, the point is push your kids within what their boundaries are, and even if your kid has a speech impediment, work with them. If your kid has autism and they struggle with outbursts, work with them. And meaning with that, we with our kid with outbursts, we took her and we were like, "Hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna put you in a timeout every time you do this specific thing. Every time you act out like this, and you do this." And so it's just working at that and making them better. For epilepsy, I mean, help your child feel included. Fight for your kids. They say, "Oh, your kid can't do this," and your kid can within his boundaries. That's not going to hurt him or her. Um, fight for them. Fight the schools. Like, speak out about this stuff because it's so important.
Yep, that's why we have the mantra: speak up, speak out, and speak loud.
Yep.
You have to, as the disabled community. And I will say this, and then we got to go because it's been a really long episode. It'll be really great. And no, we're not going to turn it into 2 parts. Just listen to it if you have like a 2 hour drive or something. I don't know. It's not 2 hours, but yeah. But this is why I have the mantra: speak up, speak out, and speak loud. And let me tell you something from my perspective: why people with disabilities don't get the services we need and deserve, because we're so dependent on the services that we need, that when they throw us a little meat or a little bone and say, okay, we'll give you these services, and then once we have those services, we don't feel like we have a right to complain about those if those aren't meeting our needs. The reason why people with disabilities don't get our needs met and don't get the services we deserve is because we're not speaking up, we're not speaking out, we're not speaking loud, and we're
Mm.
afraid we're going to get blacklisted. And listen, I've been blacklisted before. for speaking out and speaking up and speaking loud about my services, the subpart services that I receive. But I have come to find out that that is my calling. And at the end of the day, God's going to take care of me and make sure I have what I need. But we have to speak up, speak out, and speak loud, because otherwise, we're going to have the meager life that the government wants us to have. If we
Yeah.
don't put a stop to it as a disabled community and say, no, we can have jobs that allow us to have minimum wage or more. No, we can live we can live without the shoestring budget. We can live and have a full life.
Yeah.
And I need to say this to people with disabilities. Those of you that complain about, oh, the government's going to take away my Medicaid, my Medicare, my Social Security. Unless you really can't work, why do you care about that so much? Because they barely give enough for us to get by.
Yep.
Do what you can, whether it's starting your own business or trying to get on social media. I feel like social media is such a great tool for people with disabilities
Absolutely.
because it's so simple for us to use and we can tell our own story. We don't have anybody telling us what our narrative should be. We can tell the good, the bad, and the really, really ugly. So
I,
figure out a
absolutely,
way
Nick.
to get off that shoestring if you can and don't depend on that.
Oh man, absolutely. I think of guys like you that have, and this goes back to again the first episode or other episodes that we talked about where people have told you, like, hey, you're never going to be able to live in your own apartment. Like, don't listen to what people say. If you want to do something, and we're going back to the whole, the job thing, and things like that. You don't have to live on disability. You can do what you put your mind to. Nick has created a 50,000 person following on TikTok. There's a guy like Shane Burkall and his wife Hannah that have a YouTube channel, the Squirmy and Grubs, if you've ever heard of them, that
Yep,
have millions of followers all throughout social media. And Shane has written books, and it is a great avenue, and you can do these things. Because I know people tell you that, hey, you're not going to be able to do this. And the doctors tell you that. You sit in the doctor's office and they say, you're probably not going to be able to do this. You're probably not going to be able to do this. If you want to do it, go freaking do it. Now, I'm not saying to the person that's unfortunately stuck in a wheelchair all his life, you're going to be in the NBA. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But things like this, like, you want a job, you can have a job. Like, put your mind to it and get to work. And there are people that will help you. If your own family won't help you, there are people that you can find that will help you.
yep, yep. And this is why I preach so much that our vocational rehabilitation services all across the country, there's only 22% of people as of 2023, 22% of people that have a disability in this country are gainfully employed. Why is that statistic so low? We need our employers to take off the limits of themselves and to not worry about, oh, what's going to happen if I hire this guy or this gal that has a disability.
Yeah,
Yes, you do have to look out for yourself and your company at the end of the day, but take off the blinders a little bit. Put your toe in the water of having somebody with a disability. What would that look like for your company?
absolutely. Very
And
important, man.
what would that bring to your and by the way, not just a greeter, okay? They don't have
Oh, good. Don't
your
get me started. Don't get me started on that.
oh Jesus. We gotta go anyway. But yeah, I thank you so much for this episode. We
Yeah,
stayed on
man. This is
track.
good.
We stayed on track for the most part, and we talked about your epilepsy, which I think was great. One of these days, I'm going to have your mom on here because I want to have her perspective and what she saw you go through. And I'm just going to say, guys, she's really dainty and she's really soft spoken. So she's like, "Oh, my Daniel," and yeah, But I love your mom. She makes awesome Puerto Rican rice. I wish I would have had her make it for me when I was there in town a couple
Well,
months.
and she taught me how to make it, and that's I made it yesterday actually, and I just had it for lunch. I just had leftovers.
So good.
And yeah, man. And one thing I will say is she has worked, and I know we got to go, but she has worked also not just me, but with other disabled people. She has taken care of elderly, and I know that's a little bit different, but
No,
she is
thing. Yeah.
yeah, she's been a home health aide for 20 years. She has taken care of disabled people. Josh Greeno is a friend that that she's helped too, and there's a lot of people that she has helped, and she has a different perspective on the caregiver side, and so she'd be a really person to get on, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, we thank you guys for listening to our banter. Hopefully it was more structured than the last couple times. I think it was. And especially if you have someone in your family that has epilepsy and they're really struggling, I would encourage them to listen to this episode because Daniel has been through it like nobody I've ever seen. And we talked about the fears of, being around him and being around each other really with our own disabilities. And so I really hope that it was an encouragement. And you guys, I'm always looking for a guest. So please email me with the subject line, be a guest on Nick Speaks at nickspeaksofficial at gmail.com, and I'll take a look at your stuff, take a look at your email, set you up for a pre-call and see if you would be a good guest for Nick Speaks. I will see you guys next week. Remember, this is the Nick Speaks podcast where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled most. I am your crippled host, Nicolas Comstock, and I will see you next week. Take care, guys.